I was 32 years old and thought I had found the one. Jessica and I had been together for 3 years, and our relationship felt like something out of a dream. We had the same interests, finished each other's sentences, and I was already saving for a ring. Then, one evening, she casually dropped a bomb that shattered everything. She had cheated on me because she needed a real man. The way she smirked when she said it cut deeper than the words themselves. In that moment, my perfect world collapsed. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button if you have ever trusted someone completely only to have your heart broken. Trust me, what happens next might surprise you. I met Jessica at my buddy Marcus' housewarming party 3 years ago. I remember that night perfectly because it changed my life. She walked in wearing a blue sundress, her dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders, and a smile that lit up the room. I was not usually the type to approach women at parties, but something about her made me brave. We clicked instantly. While everyone else was playing drinking games, we found ourselves in the corner of the patio talking about our favorite hiking trails and debating whether French or Italian cinema had more influence on modern indie films. By the end of the night, we had exchanged numbers, and I texted her the next morning. That was unusual for me, too. I typically waited the standard 3 days. But with Jessica, all the normal rules seemed pointless. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant downtown. She told me about her job as a marketing manager, and I shared stories about my work as a software developer. The conversation flowed effortlessly for hours, until the staff started stacking chairs around us. We were the last ones there, lost in our own world. Over the next few months, we became inseparable. My friends loved her. She was charming, funny, and always the life of the party. She integrated herself into my social circle so perfectly that sometimes it felt like she had always been there. After a year together, moving in seemed like the natural next step. We found a cozy 2-bedroom apartment with a view of the park, and I thought I had never been happier. Looking back, there were warning signs I chose to ignore. About 18 months into our relationship, Jessica started making little comments about my career ambition. At first, they seemed like gentle encouragement. You could definitely be a team lead if you pushed yourself more. But gradually, they became more critical. Mark, from your office, just got promoted again, right? What is he doing that you are not? I brushed these comments off as her wanting the best for me, but they stung. I was comfortable in my role, had a good work-life balance, and made more than enough money for us to live comfortably. But Jessica seemed increasingly dissatisfied with my contentment. Around the same time, I noticed Jessica growing closer to my friend group, particularly Ryan. Ryan was the stereotypical alpha male of our circle. Former college athlete, successful investment banker, drove a sports car, and always had stories about his adventures. Jessica always laughed a little louder at his jokes, touched his arm when they talked, and seemed to light up when he entered the room. Again, I dismissed my concerns. Jessica was naturally outgoing, and I trusted her completely. Other changes were subtle but persistent. Jessica changed the password on her phone. She started going out more with work friends, coming home later and later. There were unexplained charges on our shared credit card from restaurants I had never been to. When I asked about these things, she always had a reasonable explanation, and I wanted to believe her. The night everything fell apart was an ordinary Friday. I had come home early to surprise Jessica, with takeout from her favorite Thai place and tickets to a concert she had mentioned wanting to see. I found her sitting on our couch, scrolling through her phone, looking completely unbothered. When she saw the food and tickets, she did not react with the excitement I expected. Instead, she sighed and said we needed to talk. Those 4 words that never precede anything good. I sat down, food forgotten, as she spoke the words that would replay in my mind for months afterward. I have been sleeping with Ryan for the past 2 months, she said, her voice eerily casual, as if she were commenting on the weather. I just needed a real man in my life. I stared at her, unable to process what she was saying. Ryan. My friend Ryan. The same Ryan who had clapped me on the back just last weekend at our regular Sunday brunch and asked how things were with Jessica. "Is this a joke?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely audible. "No joke, Elton," she replied. And then came that smirk. A small lift of the corner of her mouth, cold and dismissive. That expression said everything her words did not. She did not regret it. She did not care about my pain. And worst of all, she felt justified. I felt physically ill. My chest constricted and the room seemed to spin around me. 3 years of memories flashed before my eyes now, all tainted by this revelation. Every moment now questionable, every laugh potentially fake. How long? Why, I stammered, still hoping there was some explanation that could make this less devastating. "I told you 2 months," Jessica said with an eye roll. "And because you are just too comfortable, too predictable. You never push for more. Ryan knows what he wants, and goes after it. In career and life in bed, each word was a knife, twisting deeper. I had always believed our relationship was built on mutual respect and love. Now I realized Jessica saw me as inadequate a placeholder, until someone better came along. Did everyone know? I asked, suddenly paranoid that I had been the laughingstock of our friend group. "Not everyone," she said with a shrug. "Just Marcus and Tyler. And Adam. They understand, though. They know we have been having problems. Problems I did not even know existed. Problems she had apparently discussed with my friends instead of me." The betrayal expanded, growing from a personal wound to a social humiliation. "I need some air," I said, standing up abruptly. I could not look at her smirking face another second without saying things I might regret. "Sure, go clear your head," she said dismissively. "But we need to figure out the apartment situation. I think you should be the one to move out. Ryan and I want to stay here." The audacity of her request was the final straw. I grabbed my keys and walked out without another word, her casual cruelty following me like a shadow. Outside our apartment building, I sat in my car, hands shaking too badly to put the key in the ignition. The betrayal was so fresh that it had not fully registered yet. I reached for my phone and called Marcus, my oldest friend. We had known each other since high school, and if anyone would have my back in this situation, it would be him. "Can we meet?" I asked when he answered. "Something has happened. I need to talk." There was a pause on the other end of the line that should have been my first clue. "Sure, man. The usual spot in 30, he finally replied. The usual spot was a local bar where our group often gathered. By the time I arrived, Marcus was already there, along with Tyler and Adam. They sat at our regular booth, 3 beers on the table, and uncomfortable expressions on their faces. "So Jessica told you," Marcus said, as soon as I sat down. It was not a question. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The awkward pause on the phone suddenly made sense. Jessica had not been lying about my friends knowing about the affair. "You knew?" I asked, looking around the table. All of you, Tyler, could not meet my eyes. Adam stared intently at his beer. Only Marcus had the decency to look slightly ashamed. "We found out a few weeks ago," Marcus admitted. "Jessica was upset. She said things between you two had been bad for a while." "Bad," I repeated, dumbfounded. "We were fine. At least I thought we were." Adam finally looked up. "Come on, man. You two have been off for months. Everyone could see it." "Everyone except me, apparently," I said bitterly. "And none of you thought to give me a heads up that my girlfriend was sleeping with Ryan." "It was not our place," Tyler said, fidgeting with his coaster. "We did not want to get involved." "Not your place," I felt my voice rising. "You are supposed to be my friends." "We are your friends," Marcus insisted. "But Jessica was unhappy, and you worked so much that you did not notice. She needed someone who was more present." I could not believe what I was hearing. I had always maintained a standard 40-hour work week, specifically to have time for Jessica and my social life. The narrative they were describing was completely foreign to me. "And Ryan?" I asked. "Is he here too? Or did he not want to face me?" "He thought it might be awkward," Adam said, and then added the words that floored me. "You should just man up and try to win her back if you care about her." Show her you can be what she needs. It was at that moment I realized what had happened. Over the 3 years of our relationship, Jessica had systematically become the center of our social group. She organized the gatherings, created the group chats, and became the glue that held everyone together, all while subtly undermining me. I remembered her comments at parties. "Poor Elton is so tired from work. He can hardly stay awake past 10. And Elton is not really into traveling. He prefers his routine. Do not you, babe?" Small remarks that painted me as boring, unadventurous, and unambitious. Comments I had laughed off at the time, not realizing she was crafting a narrative that would eventually justify her betrayal. Looking at my so-called friends now, I saw that they had completely bought into Jessica's narrative. In their eyes, I was the villain in this story, the inadequate boyfriend who drove Jessica into another man's arms. The truth did not matter anymore. "I think I should go," I said, quietly standing up. "Do not be dramatic," Elton Adams said. "Stay and finish your beer. We can talk this out." But there was nothing left to talk about. These men who I had considered brothers had chosen sides long before tonight. As I walked out into the rain, I had never felt more alone. I checked into a hotel that night, unable to face returning to the apartment I shared with Jessica. For 3 days, I barely left the room. I called in sick to work, ignored messages from everyone, and tried to make sense of how my life had imploded so suddenly. On the third night, staring at my haggard reflection in the hotel bathroom mirror, something shifted inside me. The hollow-eyed man looking back at me seemed like a stranger. I had 2 choices: I could break completely, or I could rebuild myself from the ground up. In that moment, I decided I would not break. The realization that hit me in that hotel bathroom was simple but powerful. Begging Jessica to reconsider would only validate her belief that I was not man enough. Lashing out in anger would play into the narrative that I was unstable and jealous. My response needed to be strategic, calm, and above all focused on self-respect rather than revenge. I spent the next day creating a plan. First, I met with a lawyer to understand my rights regarding the apartment lease, which was in both our names. I learned that neither of us could legally force the other out, but I could negotiate a clean break if I approached it correctly. Next, I documented everything we owned jointly and separated our financial accounts. Jessica and I had maintained individual bank accounts with one joint account for household expenses. I transferred my portion of the next month's rent into that account, and nothing more. I took another day off work, explaining to my sympathetic manager that I was dealing with a personal emergency. That day was spent preparing myself emotionally and practically for what would come next. 2 days later, I returned to the apartment during hours I knew Jessica would be at work. As I suspected, there were signs that Ryan had been staying over. His cologne lingered in the bathroom, and a pair of unfamiliar cufflinks sat on the nightstand that had once been mine. Methodically, I packed my essential belongings and the few treasured items that held sentimental value. I had no interest in fighting over furniture or appliances. Those were just things, and my dignity was worth more than any material possession. As I was gathering the last of my clothes, I noticed Jessica's journal on her bedside table. She had always been an avid journal writer and typically kept it locked in her desk drawer. The fact that it was left out suggested she had been writing in it recently and felt secure that I would not return unexpectedly. I hesitated only briefly before opening it. Under normal circumstances, I would never invade someone's privacy like this. But these were not normal circumstances. What I found inside was both painful and liberating. In her flowing handwriting were detailed accounts of her affair with Ryan starting much earlier than the 2 months she had claimed. More disturbing were her candid thoughts about our friend group. She described Marcus as pathetically hung up on his ex-wife Tyler, as a financial failure who would never amount to anything, and Adam as a follower who would believe anything she told him. There were even mocking entries about Ryan himself, questioning his intelligence and viewing him as merely a stepping stone to a more exciting social circle. The journal revealed Jessica's true character in a way that no argument or accusation from me ever could. I did not take the journal. Instead, I took clear photos of the most revealing pages, with my phone replaced it exactly where I found it, and finished packing. That Sunday was our friend group regular brunch day. I had been ignoring all messages from everyone, so my appearance at the restaurant caused visible shock. Jessica was there seated beside Ryan, his arm draped possessively over the back of her chair. Marcus, Tyler, and Adam were also present along with their girlfriends and a few other regular members of our extended circle. I arrived calm and collected, though my heart was hammering in my chest. The table fell silent as I approached. Jessica's face registered shock, before quickly composing itself into cool indifference. Ryan looked nervous, his arm tightening around Jessica's shoulders, as if claiming his territory. "Room for one more?" I asked pleasantly, pulling up a chair without waiting for a response. "Elton, we did not think you would come," Marcus said, breaking the uncomfortable silence. "And miss our traditional Sunday brunch," I replied with a smile that did not reach my eyes. I would not dream of it. The waiter came to take my order, providing a momentary distraction from the tension. Once he left, all eyes returned to me, waiting for the scene they clearly expected. The bitter confrontation, the angry accusations, the jealous ex making a fool of himself. Instead, I took a sip of water and said quietly, "I know everything." "What are you talking about?" Jessica asked, her voice carrying a warning edge. "Not just about you and Ryan," I clarified. "Though, by the way, it has been going on for 5 months, not 2. But also about what you really think of everyone here." I placed my phone on the table and turned it toward the group. On the screen was the first journal entry, the one describing Marcus' painful divorce, and how Jessica found his continued heartbreak pathetic. "What is that?" Jessica demanded. Reaching for my phone, I pulled it back. "Your journal has been enlightening reading, Jessica. Would you like me to share what you wrote about Tyler's financial struggles? Or what you really think about Ryan's intellectual capabilities?" The color drained from Jessica's face as she realized what I had found. Ryan looked confused, glancing between us. "You had no right to read my private thoughts," Jessica hissed. "Probably not," I agreed. "Just like you had no right to destroy our relationship and turn my friends against me. But here we are." I turned to the group, who were watching with a mixture of confusion and growing unease. For weeks, I have been painted as the bad guy, the inadequate boyfriend who drove Jessica to cheat. But the truth is, I was manipulated by someone who systematically isolated me while pretending to be something she is not. I swiped to another journal entry and read aloud, "Adam is so easy to convince of anything. Just a few tears, and he is ready to take my side without question. Pathetic, but useful." Adam's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "I am moving out of the apartment," I announced. "You two can have it. I do not want anything from either of you except the truth." The brunch table had become so quiet, you could hear conversations from across the restaurant. Jessica sat frozen, her carefully constructed image crumbling before her eyes. Ryan looked increasingly uncomfortable, no doubt, wondering what Jessica had written about him. I stood up, having accomplished what I came for. As I prepared to leave, I addressed my former friends one last time. "You chose to believe her lies without ever asking for my side of the story. That says everything about our friendship. I wish you all well, but I deserve better than this." With that, I walked out, leaving behind the wreckage of relationships that had been built on manipulation and lies. For the first time since Jessica's confession, I felt a sense of power returning. I had not stooped to her level, but I had exposed the truth, and that was enough. The weeks following what my former friend group came to call the brunch incident were surprisingly peaceful. I found a new apartment in a different neighborhood, one with large windows and a small balcony, perfect for the indoor garden I had always wanted to start. Jessica had always complained that plants made her sneeze, so this small act of creating greenery around me felt symbolic of my fresh start. At work, I channeled my emotional energy into professional growth. I volunteered for a challenging project that required learning new programming languages, something I had been hesitant to do before. 6 weeks later, my dedication earned me the promotion that Jessica had claimed I was too complacent to pursue. The most interesting aftermath came in the form of text messages and emails from my former friends. Marcus was the first to reach out with a simple message: "I messed up. I am sorry. Can we talk, Tyler?" And Adam followed with similar apologies. According to Marcus, after I left the brunch, Jessica had tried to damage control by claiming I had fabricated the journal entries. Her story fell apart when Adam asked to see her phone and she refused. Ryan, confronted with evidence of what Jessica really thought of him, ended things publicly right there at the table. I responded to their messages with simple acknowledgments. I did not hold grudges, but I also did not rush to rebuild bridges that had been so easily burned. Trust once broken takes time to reconstruct, and I was in no hurry. Instead, I reconnected with old friends who had drifted away during my relationship with Jessica. My college roommate James and I started meeting weekly for pickup basketball, something Jessica had discouraged because she thought sports were a waste of time. I joined a hiking club and discovered weekend trails that challenged and invigorated me. I also began therapy, something I had never considered before. Those weekly sessions helped me process the betrayal and recognize patterns I needed to avoid in future relationships. My therapist helped me understand that Jessica's behavior had been emotionally abusive and that recognizing this was not a sign of weakness but of self-awareness. 4 months after the breakup, I ran into Jessica and Ryan at a restaurant downtown. They were sitting at a corner table, engaged in what appeared to be an intense argument. Jessica spotted me and faltered mid-sentence, her eyes widening in recognition. I nodded politely and continued to my table without stopping. Later, as I was leaving, Jessica approached me alone in the parking lot. "You look good, Elton," she said, her voice lacking the confidence I remembered. "I heard you got promoted." "I did," I confirmed, keeping my tone neutral. She shifted uncomfortably. "Ryan and I are having problems," she admitted. "He is not who I thought he was." I nodded, unsurprised. Through mutual acquaintances, I had heard their relationship had been turbulent from the start. The initial excitement had quickly given way to constant fighting and breakups. "I have been thinking about us." Jessica continued, moving a step closer. "Maybe we gave up too easily. We had something good before things got complicated." For a moment, I saw the woman I had once loved, the one I had planned to propose to. But that woman had never really existed. She had been a carefully crafted persona designed to fulfill Jessica's needs until something better came along. "We did not give up, Jessica," I said gently. "You made a choice, and I made mine afterward. I wish you well, but that chapter of my life is closed." She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. In her eyes, I saw a flash of the old Jessica, calculating and determined to get what she wanted. But I was no longer the person who could be manipulated by her. "Take care of yourself," I said, and walked to my car. A week later, Jessica texted asking if we could meet for coffee to talk about old times. I politely declined. 2 weeks after that, she showed up at my new workplace during lunch hour, a coincidence that was clearly deliberate. Again, I was cordial, but firm in maintaining my boundaries. By this point, I had been seeing Samantha for almost a month. We had met at a bookstore event and bonded over shared interests in science fiction and hiking. From the beginning, our relationship was built on open communication and honesty. When I told her about my experience with Jessica, she listened without judgment and shared stories of her own past heartbreaks. What struck me most about my relationship with Samantha was how effortless it felt. There were no mind games, no subtle put-downs, no manipulation. We disagreed sometimes, but our discussions were respectful and focused on understanding each other rather than winning arguments. As months passed, I realized that the painful experience with Jessica had taught me invaluable lessons about self-worth and recognizing relationship red flags. I had emerged stronger, wiser, and ultimately happier than I would have been had I remained in that toxic situation. The betrayal that had once felt like the end of my world had actually been the beginning of a better one. Not because I had executed some elaborate revenge, but because I had chosen self-respect over bitterness, growth over stagnation, and authenticity over appearance. The real victory was not in exposing Jessica's manipulation to our friends, satisfying as that had been in the moment. The true win was in rebuilding my life on my own terms, with people who valued me for who I genuinely was, not who they wanted me to be. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? Comment below and share your story. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share to help others know they are not alone. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Your worth is never determined by someone else's inability to see it.